Hi guys, I've been wanting to do a float fishing session for tench and Crucian carp for a little while now, and here we are in late summer, early autumn. Weather conditions are overcast, cloudy, water temperature's warm, so hopefully this will be a good session. I can put a few fish on the bank. Well, the techniques I'm using for my float fishing are traditional ones. I'm using my John Wilson Avon rod, which is 1.25 pounds, which is strong enough to stop a Crucian or a tench burying itself in the lilies. And I'm using a centre pin reel because I'm not really casting, I'm dropping the bait in the margin, and the centre pin is ideal for that. And playing a fish on the centre pin gives you just so much more control. It really is good fun. So if you've not tried a centre pin, it's worth doing. It's not just for trotting on rivers, it's really good for close range float fishing as well. And a Crucian on the float is worth about 5 on the feeder. Really pleased with this. Took it just about 4 feet from the bank by some lilies. Really happy. So I'm using 6-pound line, which seems quite excessive for fishing so close in, but the first fish I had this morning on 3-pound line just smashed me up when it went through the lilies and I couldn't stop it. So I've scaled up to 6 to have a better chance of keeping the tench and Crucians away from the lilies. The float I'm using is the smallest float I have in my float box. It's a very small waggler, and it's got a brass insert at the bottom, and that means it's almost self-cocking. It shots down to the black mark on the float, and I have one more shot on the float which just sinks the float down so just the tip is showing. Crucian carp are a very shy biting fish, so you really want to shot your floats down so just the tip is showing. And that's held in place with 3 float stops. And the reason why I use 3 float stops is I have one either side of the float to hold it into position, and then I have an extra one below the float. And the reason for that is that as I'm fishing so close to the lilies, if a fish takes me through the lilies, it's very likely to move one of the float stops out of the way, which means that my float will then not be at the correct depth. If you have 2 together below the float, you can then slide your top one down and you're back in the same position that you were at the start of the session. I've just got one shot on the line next to the hook. The hook is a specialist size 16 Drennan hook, very strong. Even though I'm using 6-pound line, I'm using quite small hooks because I'm using small baits for the Crucian. And then I've got one small shot just to drop the float down so the tip is just showing. And I'll move that shot around quite a bit. If I'm not getting bites, I'll generally move the shot away from the hook. But if I'm getting bites and I'm missing them, I'll slide the shot down closer to the hook. It just gives you a better chance of hooking the fish. And it's good to get a tench as well. So this one's about 5 pounds. Quite a challenge on the float. Took me through the lilies, but managed to get her on the bank in the end. So happy days. Let's put her back. Once you've found the depth that you're fishing at, it's quite a good idea to make a note of that depth so that if you get smashed up or you have to tackle up with stronger line, as I did this morning, then you know the depth that you previously plumbed, because you don't want to be replumbing the depth when you've got fish in the swim, because the plumb might actually spook the fish. So what I tend to do is I mark on the rod. So generally I will put the hook at the top of the butt section and hold it down with my finger, and then run the line parallel with the rod until I've got the point at which my float is set at. And you can see in this example it's halfway between the spigot for the top section and the first ring of the top section, and so I know that if I have to reset up in the future, then I just need to set the float back to that level and I'm back at the same depth I plumbed when I first started fishing. And they're getting bigger. This one is 2 pounds and 3 ounces. What a cracking Crucian. So as I'm fishing so close to the lilies, I'm not casting, I'm literally just dropping the bait into the right location. It's a bit like using the rod like a roach pole. So I'm just finding the right location and dropping the float. And we are then go. Just put a little ground bait in just to trap the fish into the swim. And then it's a case of just sitting back and waiting. And the best one today so far, £2, 10 ounces. Really confident feeding Crucians. I'd use the disgorger on this one because it's so deeply hooked. Again, just about 3 or 4 feet from the bank. Absolutely superb. Another cracking Crucian. This one caught on soft pellet just by the lily pads. So I'm using hemp and sweet corn, traditional tench and Crucian bait, using hemp to feed the swim, and I've been using sweet corn on the hook. Haven't put too much in, I've just put enough in to attract the Crucians into the swim, and then after every bite I feed a small handful of hemp and corn over the top. I've been using corn on the hook, but most of the fish have come from these expandable pellets. You buy them ready to use. These are the 6mm ones, and you just pull the size 16 or size 14 hook through the pellet and just twist the point round so that it's exposed. And I think this has been the secret of the success of this campaign. This was a tip given to me by a fellow angler, and I'm really grateful he did. And away. Well, I hope you found that useful. If you did, please like, share, and all that sort of stuff. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments box and I'll do my best to answer them. Thanks again for watching. Tight lines.